Before you spend $1 on renovations, pause. Some upgrades build wealth, others burn money. Let's talk about which is which. Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Closing the Deal. I am one of your hosts, Zach Dixon, and sitting across from me on my screen this morning is my co-host, the one and only Sam Enright. What's going on today, Sam?
The one and only. Wow.
There probably is another Sam Enright out there, huh?
Well, I just didn't realize that high of praise was coming down for me. The one, the only. Wow.
The man, the myth, the legend.
I feel extremely flattered. What's going on, man? How are you doing today?
Oh, I cannot complain. Good little intro there. I like that.
We could hit him with the Dave Ramsey. How are you doing today? Better than I deserve, sir.
Ultimately, that's probably the truth, right?
I mean, I said that to my parents. They were down the week of Thanksgiving, and they were like, "How are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, better than I deserve." They're like, "I don't know how to take that." Doing better than I deserve. That's all I can say.
It's a glass half full, not glass half empty response.
Yeah, I guess it could be either way you look at it. Better than I deserve. You could be like, depends on what do you think you deserve.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Hey, what's the episode talking today? What we got?
Oh man, what do we got today, guys? Today we're talking about what renovations actually increase your home value and which don't. Thought this would be a good episode, especially kind of piggybacking right on our previous episode that we dropped in regards to why your first home should not be your dream home. This feels like another great episode to kind of coincide with that, because on that episode, if you guys haven't listened, feel free to go back and listen. But we talk about what, I guess, possibilities open up for you when you purchase a home that is a stepping stone, right? And inside of that stepping stone, there are obviously moves that you can make that are ultimately going to improve the value of your home, while there are moves you can make that are not going to improve the value for your home. So this is an episode really just kind of dissecting where is the best place to spend your hard-earned money if you want to earn more money in your house. So really felt, appropriate, if you will say, to dive into some different things here and talk about what kind of renovations you guys can be looking into if you want to improve the value of your home, and which ones to stay away from if that is not something that you want to do, improve the value of your home.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's a perfect little follow-up episode to our last episode. Because again, when we buy those first homes, there are so many things that we can do. The possibilities are truly endless on what you can do to upgrade your home and how you like it, and also thinking about future resale and how that affects that as well. So definitely a lot of options. And I think generally speaking, most of the decisions are made based on aesthetics, based on feel, stuff like that. But to bring another perspective on how they kind of line up with your resale value, your appraised value as a whole. Those are the things I don't think, home buyers maybe think about when they decide that they want to do these projects.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people are under the assumption that anytime you put money into your house, it's going to then return money to you, right? It's I guess, a easy assumption. Most people, anything in life, if you put money into it, you feel you're going to most normally at least be able to get your money back, or get some sort of value from it. But that's not always the case, right? Some things are just not appealing to home buyers and not appealing to the overall value of the property. So we're going to dissect that a little bit for you guys today, go into the ins and outs, and give you guys a little bit more insight into those things.
Absolutely. So let's get started with the first number one value add renovation that, in my opinion, and that I see on the market, is going to be kitchens. I think that although this isn't an area that we spend a lot of time in, a lot of experiences, I obviously most of the time that you spend in your home is going to be in a living room or in a bedroom, stuff like that. But the kitchen, I think, just is it can be very inviting if it's set up the right way and obviously fixed up the right way as well. In my opinion, kitchens typically give the highest ROI on the resale value of the home. So when we're looking at kitchen remodels, some of the things that we can do and some of the good updates that we want to see in kitchen remodels are going to be, your standard fixes, your countertops, your hardware on your cabinets, making sure those cabinet doors are in good shape, plus in good painted condition as well. I've walked through plenty of houses that have really really nice bones on the cabinets, but they just need a coat of paint. And that obviously, like we talked about in our last episode, is not a very expensive expense in itself. But obviously, the hardware on those cabinets definitely makes a difference. If you have black finishes on your cabinets, but you have a stainless steel appliance, it may be more advantageous to change out those fixtures to stainless steel to match those appliances. Those are little fixes that can make the world of difference when you're doing this kitchen remodel as a whole. And then, like I mentioned, refinishing the cabinets if necessary, past just the paint. Most woodworking cabinets are going to be in pretty good shape and stay in pretty good shape if you take care of them over time. But refinishing that wood can definitely make a huge difference in just the overall structure of the cabinets themselves. And then the big ticket is going to be your new appliances, like I mentioned. Generally speaking, those stainless steel appliances that all match between the microwave, kitchen, or microwave, range, fridge, dishwasher, all of those matching, it just gives a good feel to the kitchen as a whole, and kind of rounds out the upgrades that it's possible in that kitchen itself.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Honestly, man, just even looking at houses myself, I'm always drawn to the kitchen. I don't know how to explain it exactly, but I feel like honestly, when you think about it, right, bedrooms are more of a you thing. When you envision a kitchen, you envision hosting, having people over, the overall feel of the house, because I feel like a kitchen, I think, is what kind of sets the tone for the home in general. It's one of the common areas. It's where people are going to congregate in most oftentimes. Your bedroom is going to be your spouse, significant other, whatever. You have kids, they have their own separate bedrooms. You're not going to spend a lot of time in your kid's bedroom. Your kids are not going to spend a lot of time in your bedroom, likely. But where are you guys going to congregate as a family? Where the friends, the family that come, where they're going to come to, it's going to be the living room, it's going to be the kitchen. And just even having that nice ambiance when you walk in with, like you mentioned, those just appliances all matching with just a nice, good coat of paint over your cabinets to really bring everything together and give it this homey feel. I think subconsciously speaking, it speaks to a lot of people when you go through a house, and when you look at it, that's going to be one of those things that's just going to resonate with you. Is, what did the kitchen look like? How did it make you feel when you were there? So definitely going to be a big thing to look at. And I think it's just naturally one of those things when people think about redoing a house. There's the first two on this list are things that just automatically come to my brain every single time that I think about renovating a home, and kitchen's obviously going to be that number one.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think ultimately, the best kitchen renovations aren't necessarily sexy by any means, but they're just smart. You're doing the small things, the fixtures, like I mentioned, the refinishing, the countertops, stuff like that. They're not going to be sexy, but they're going to be smart.
Yeah, 100%. Um, so number two, like I said, when I'm thinking about renovations, this is huge. This is where I feel like most people kind of get their start too, is bathrooms. Doing a bathroom remodel. So obviously, I've seen it firsthand. The house I grew up in, my parents still live in right now. I should say grow up in a majority of my life that we grew up, they still live in now. And so, obviously, as time's gone on, they've done more and more renovations, and bathrooms were one of their major starting points. I still remember the bathroom that me and my brother used growing up. It was had like this yellowish kind of tannish color on the walls, and it was old. I mean, it was just exactly how we moved in. And so, like, it was kind of some old looking wooden cabinetry. It was just kind of a very dated bathroom. I would say it gave me very early 2000s vibe when you think about a house. Um, And so that was one of the first things my parents were just like, yep, hey, we're going to go, we're going to redo this bathroom. It's going to, there was a basically kind of you walked in, there was a wall right here in the shower. It was a stand-in shower on the other side. And so they took that wall out, basically put a new tub in. And it's a completely different look and a completely different feel. It's just, it was crazy. Obviously, we don't have to go that deep, right? We don't have to make it to the point where we're tearing out walls and restarting from scratch. You can obviously do that, but just even the little things, even just the paint job in there and adding some shelves on the wall, bringing a little bit more pop of color and not like this kind of dark, I don't want to say dark, but this kind of dingier yellowish tan kind of color makes the ambiance in there feel a little bit darker. You get those lighter walls, and it brings just a little bit more light to the room in general. And it's just like that, remodel just changed that bathroom entirely. It's really hard for me to look in there now and be like, oh my gosh, it's hard to believe that at one point in time this looked like this and that this is what we were, showering in, brushing our teeth, all the nine, and now it looks like this. So it is definitely crazy just, what can go in. And I feel like that's a huge big ticket item that a lot of people look at. A lot of people, when I feel like when we talk to them, it's always, starting with bathroom remodels. So that's a a very good way to add value to the property, but also just add an overall great feel and ambiance as well, when it comes to redoing your bathrooms.
For sure. That's crazy. That you describing that image brought it back into my head. Like I remember that bathroom exactly like that too.
Yeah.
From being, 15, 16, 17 years old over at your house. So that's just crazy. And I now obviously I've seen the new bathroom too, and it looks
Yeah.
fantastic. Like it is night and day, completely different. But I think ultimately going back to, why these two maybe are top of the list is the guests are also going to end up in your bathroom as well. You're going to have a lot of people in and out of that bathroom when you're hosting, if you're hosting people and having people over. And so that, definitely want to make sure that that is up to par for all of your guests and obviously for yourself as well. But yeah, like I mentioned in the last episode, definitely that is something actually that we've done in my own house as well. Not as serious as that bathroom remodel, but threw a new coat of paint on there, changed up the entire color scheme pretty much in there, and made it a lot more lighter through some shelves and some decorations. And it's completely night and day from what it was. And obviously only a half bath, so no shower or anything like that. But it's just a lot more inviting, and it's a bathroom right by our front door and right next to our living room, so it's something that a lot of guests use as well. And just wanted to make it a little bit more inviting, and it definitely did so, and in my opinion brought a little bit more value to the home as well.
Yeah, man, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I have not seen the bathroom yet, so I'm excited to take a peek and report back as a unbiased source. As a guest visiting the home, how did it make me feel? But I did see the one before, and yeah, it just had that darker feel to it. It was a really really dark blue, and you kind of just you walk in, it feels a little bit darker in there. So I'm sure with the lighter paint, throwing some shelves on, just as you guys can tell, I'm sure by the overall tone. I mean, and maybe this is just in general. I know there are people that like those darker colors, but I think a lot of people like that lighter, that lift you up a little bit. You walk in and it just kind of is like a refreshing sort of feel rather than like, oh my, just kind of like sinking down a little bit, these darker rooms. So I'm excited to check it out, and I'm sure it definitely has elevated the feel of the bathroom in general for sure.
Definitely, definitely. So moving on to our next renovation is going to be flooring. I wholeheartedly so very much agree with this one. I can't even put it into words. And it's solely there's two kind of there's a double edged sword to it. I would say there's kind of two avenues to it. One being the material of which the flooring is made. If the floor is in good shape, but it is maybe a ugly color carpet. It that is something that we can look into getting upgraded into maybe a LVT, a luxury vinyl tile, a luxury vinyl plank, something that looks a little bit more inviting than maybe like a carpet that collects a lot of dust, it collects a lot of dirt, things like that. It can definitely not make the home feel as light, feel as homey as it possibly can. and with the LVT, LVP flooring, this is something that is going to be very, very durable. Usually it's going to be waterproof. It's very, very easy to clean. And so for those reasons, that is why I would always recommend doing those, that tile, that plank in the home. I know a lot of people are very big fans of original hardwood as well. Will never discount the original hardwood. That's not my personal cup of tea, but it is a great, great flooring surface, very similar to the LVT, LVP in terms of very durable, easy to clean, et cetera, et cetera. And and so I guess the other side of the spectrum is any surface can be in very, very bad shape and need to be replaced. And ultimately, when you walk into a home that needs new flooring, it can definitely take the resale value down in your own head.
I think flooring is another one of those. Like, honestly, dude, every single time we've talked about, like, just talked about these last three items, like, it has actually genuinely made me feel something inside. And I've put myself in the envision of, like, you walk into this house and, I don't, honestly, I don't know. What is the stuff like you would get from like a Home Depot, comes in the small packages, the flooring, you know what I'm saying, snaps together.
Yeah, that's LVT,
Okay,
LVP.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like I know that that's become increasingly popular, right? So a lot of people have wanted to put that in their house, and to me, like it just it changes the whole game. I think a lot of people are getting away from the carpet. In general, I know, typically you're gonna find it in most bedrooms, that sort of thing. But a lot of people, dude, I mean, you remember there's people that have had carpets in their dining room floor, you know what I mean? So it's like it's crazy. You get to a first floor and it's just all carpet, and then it stops at the kitchen, and it's just crazy. And then you walk in, like I just think about your house. You walk in, it's all that LVT, as you would say, floor or something like that. And it just brings a whole different feeling out of you than if I were to walk in and see all carpet. I don't know what it is. It just something about carpet that just is not visually appealing. I think a lot of people are going towards that, that flooring, that little bit of hardwood flooring type deal with, a little bit of a rug or something under their couch area. But, I think a lot of people wear their shoes in the house for one. That's a huge thing. So when you wear your shoes in the house and you got carpet everywhere, you're going to track in dirt, mud, and it's going to look really, really dingy. So that protects you. I mean, in our house when I was growing up, my dad, even my brother, not very good about taking our shoes off when we come in the house. Drove my mom crazy because her carpet would look like crap and she would be sick about it. So, their plan obviously was, okay, full front, all one floor, going to be all that hardwood LVT type, deal. That way it's easy to clean. You're not tracking in a bunch of stuff. You're not ruining it by wearing shoes on it and whatnot. So, definitely one that just brings the house together and just has a completely different feel to it.
So moving on to our next renovation that brings good value add to your home is going to be major systems and roof. Major systems meaning HVAC, water heater, windows, electrical. So now we're gonna getting into the more in-depth, more expensive repairs as a whole, but these are the things that buyers do not want to walk into having to replace in their brand new home. Brand new meaning brand new to them as the buyer. So obviously it's self-explanatory. A roof is almost $10,000 these days. HVAC system is almost $10,000 these days. A water heater is $1,500. Windows, if you're replacing all of the windows in your home, probably 20 grand. And so again, these are not things that buyers want to have to take care of. So to be able to have those done in your home ownership and fixed and ready to go for when you go to resale, that is just going to take your home to another level, take it to another notch. The best homes, the best listings, in my opinion, when I get to send them to buyers, are ones that say in the description, new water heater 2022, new HVAC 2024, new roof 2025. Like seeing those things being done in the last 2 to 3 years when those properties go on the market is truly night and day compared to other ones. And it's solely because of the cost. Like, again, when a buyer is going to buy his first home, his or her first home, you know, they're forking out a good chunk of change, as we've covered in previous episodes. And to want to, or to have to chunk out, or, you know, put out another 20, 30, 40 grand to do some of these systems, that's going to turn a lot of buyers away. And so not only are you going to be able to reap the benefits of these items, a high efficiency HVAC system or a brand new roof, so you're not getting any leaks into your home, or windows that are not allowing drafting inside, so now your heating bills are lower. All of those things are going to be a positive for you as the homeowner, and then obviously are going to double, triple the resale value of those systems themselves. You're going to be able to recoup that money, most definitely, plus some. Absolutely. So
Yeah, love it, man. There's nothing better than having fresh systems because, you know, wanting to having to fix that on your first year, 2 years, 3 years in the house, that's not going to be an easy expense. So definitely something that is going to, drive that buyer to want to pay.
And I think that the one thing I can really mention is it's critical for the inspection period once you get into contract, and the buyer sees these. Obviously, that's going to show up on an inspection and more than likely going to turn the buyers away. That's not something that usually buyers are going to see upon their first walkthrough. Some of those, they're some of the best upgrades you're not going to be able to see, and those are including roof, HVAC, windows. Those are the things that are real value for sure.
Yeah, for sure, man. Obviously wrapping up here with value add renovations. So the last one's going to be again, I think maybe the last two or the last one was maybe the one that we talked about that was probably the least emotional, right? But curb appeal. This is one I know obviously you talked about, Zach, when you first bought your house, and just redoing the flower beds up front, and putting new mulch down, and just making the overall curb appeal of the home. What are we trying to do? Obviously, we're trying to drive an emotion in the person that we're trying to get to buy the house, right? You want them to fall in love with it when they see it, because somebody that's in love, we talked about it, usually people that are making emotional decisions are willing to go above and beyond when they feel a strong emotion towards that thing, right? So it's a double-edged sword, right? We're trying to drive that emotion in somebody to really want to feel like, man, I can see my life here. Like, I can see raising kids, I can see having the family, whatever the case may be. And so when you pull up to this, and you pull up to your house, and the flower beds haven't been weeded in 6 months, and everything's dead, and you got weeds growing up out of it, and the front deck hasn't been re-stained in 6 years, and it's peeling everywhere, and your front doors chipped, cracked, doesn't look great. What is that saying to, we've talked about it in previous episodes, what is that saying to a potential buyer? What is that saying to even you, honestly, when you come home? What is that saying to you when you look at your front of your house? You're like, oh my gosh, And so it's one of those things. It's like, I would relate it to making your bed in the morning. How does it feel when you just look back in your bedroom in the morning and you make your bed? You're just going to feel good. I feel a sense of accomplishment when I walk out of the room and I'm like, you know what? The room looks put together. The bed's made. All right, cool. I can go start my day. And so, like, walking outside, seeing my house and be like, man, this is just a beautiful house, Deck's repainted. Everything looks good there. Flower beds are weeded. Beautiful flowers blooming, blossoming, looking good, and just an overall great appeal to the home, making you feel invited, making you feel warm. It's just one of those things that, is something that can't go understated, right? It's one of the very most important things, because it is a first impression, right? Before they ever even set foot in the house, before anybody ever looks at all the inner workings, what is the first thing they're going to see when they pull up to your house? They're going to see the exterior, the front of it, the outside, and that's going to make them feel something. And what do you want them to feel if you're trying to buy your house? Do you want them to feel like, oh gosh, or do you want them to be like, oh my gosh, look at the outside of this house? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's just one of those things you just got to be really, really mindful of.
100%, 100%. I can't tell you how many times I've pulled up and to a house that I'm showing a buyer, and I look at it, and then I look over at the buyer, like, I don't know about this one, guys. I don't know about this one. But on the flip side, I've also came to listings and properties that I'm showing to a buyer, and wow, this looks great on the outside. This looks great. I'm excited to see the inside. So definitely a two different choices there for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Um, excuse me. So, guys, getting into our last section here, obviously, as promised, we said we were going to talk about renovations that don't add value. So, obviously, we've kind of gone over a general list of items that are going to be the highest ROI when it comes to returning value on your property. So let's look at some things that are not going to return value. One of these on the list is going to hurt me. I do understand it, but it is going to hurt me just because as a kid growing up, like that's all I ever wanted. But getting started here, let's just go over one of these. So, overly custom renovations. So these are going to be things such as like even like ZD's, bathroom downstairs, like a bold color, like something that is just, maybe it's just something you are really, really, really into, but a large consensus of people, if you were to take a poll, are going to say, that's not for me, right? So, themed rooms, we've seen this with wallpapers or, just different things that, are specifically themed instead of this kind of general, light overview, with a nice color paint, that sort of thing. Custom tile or personal build-in, so things that are very, very you specific, right? And it's not to say that you can't have those things. It's just, is it the best thing if you're looking for a return on investment on your property? Is that the best thing to maybe start with if you're wanting to drive growth and equity in your property? Probably not, right? Because just because you feel something by this very, very custom thing that you like doesn't mean that the overall consensus of people when they come into your house are gonna be like, man, that is sick. That is awesome. I love that. I'll give you top dollar. Most people are gonna look at it and be like, oh my gosh, we got to tear this out. We got to redo this because I just can't stand looking at this. And then, so they're starting to think about all the work that's going to have to go in, right, to redo what it is that you've already done that they're not into, is kind of the thought process that I have about it. So, overly custom renovations are just not going to be the first item on the list of things that you should be worrying about if you're trying to drive, return on investment.
100%, 100%. And the next one I will touch on is doing luxury in a non-luxury neighborhood. So this kind of goes back to ultimately determining the after repair value of the property. So before you go into doing these repairs, ultimately what you should do is look at properties in your neighborhood that are fixed up completely and what those are going for, what those are selling for. And so we can get a number in our head as to what this property could be down the road if we put these same, improvements or really just any improvements in it at all. And so if we are maxing out in the neighborhood at, something like 275, 280, 300, and we bought for 250, and we decide that we want to put in $100,000 workout gym into the basement, that is probably not going to bring us, number one, it's not going to take us over the top value of the market in that neighborhood. And so it's just not worth doing something like that. Ultimately, what we're trying to do when we do these renovations is to at least, number one, get our money back. Number two, try to, have a return on investment as well. And typically, when we are trying to, go over the max of the value in the neighborhood, it's most likely not going to happen unless, your subject home is a lot bigger, has a lot more amenities, things like that. But typically speaking, the homes in a specific neighborhood are all around the same size, or all generally, similar in nature. So they can be, and that's why we use those properties as comparables for the market value as a whole. So don't want to put $100,000 gym into a $200,000 house. Definitely will not see the ROI on that one for sure.
Oh man. Yeah, for sure. So getting to the one on the list that hurts me personally, like I said, it does make sense when you sit back and think about it, but that is pools. Pools in many markets are not going to be a high ROI I guess, return on your investment, right? So, um, I think about areas like Florida, I think may be a little bit different. Pretty much every house on their block down here has got a freaking pool on it, all the big ones, in most of your neighborhoods. But places like Ohio, dumping 30, 40 grand into an in-ground pool in your backyard, fenced in, all these different little things, you know, yes, from a certain perspective, is that going to draw people in maybe a little bit if they really really want a pool? But ultimately, we're looking at, this is a formula of saying how much you're investing and how much is it actually going to raise the value of your property, right? If you put in a 40, $50,000 swimming pool into your backyard, it is not going to raise the value of your home 40, 50,000. That's just, it just doesn't, unfortunately. So that's one of those things that is just, it's high cost, it's a lot of maintenance, and it's not going to be a huge return on investment. Obviously, this doesn't mean don't put a pool in your house. It's just, understand what you're getting yourself into if you do that. If you go in with the expectation, man, I'm gonna make this freaking pool backyard oasis and it's gonna 60,000, and you think you're gonna get this extra 60 out of the home just because you did that. Unfortunately, that's not going to be a reality for you.
Yeah, in addition to the ongoing maintenance cost too, it's going to be significantly more than the original install cost that you're going to have into it if you're a couple years into holding that property and before you go to sell it. Um, so yeah, definitely it's an enjoyable. It might be a good ROI on like the enjoyable front, but it's not going to be a good ROI on the financial front, I don't think, as well. So finishing up on our renovations that do not usually typically add value to the home is going to be trend heavy designs. And when I think about trend heavy designs, in my head, it immediately goes to like this 70s type home with the sunken living room with the wood paneling all around, and like,
The shag carpet.
you know what I mean? Yeah, the shag carpet, absolutely. Like that is
Yeah.
immediately what my head goes to. And some people are still doing that. Like I walked through a house probably 6 months ago, 9 months ago, some earlier this year for sure, and it was that. It was crazy. Like
Yeah.
like we just stepped into 1975. Now, they're cool. They are cool, yes, but they're not what the general public, general market wants. And that is obviously just one example of trend heavy designs, but there are different examples as well. And so ultimately, those things kind of come in, come out of style. They fade in, fade out. Usually, generally speaking, buyers on the general market want something that is timeless. There's a reason why these houses that were built in 1925 are still standing today. They weren't torn down and rebuilt up because they were built functionally, and they're able to be obviously upgraded on the cosmetic side to 2025 standards. But these houses that were built in the 20s, 30s, 40s, they were kind of the gold standard of homes, and are pretty timeless, in my opinion. And I've had multiple buyers in my career say that they want, those Victorian style 3-story, large stairs, spiral staircase homes. And those are kind of the timeless style that we're talking about here.
Just because you love the upgrade doesn't mean buyers will pay for it. Value comes from strategy, not personal taste.
Absolutely, man. I couldn't agree more. So I think finishing up our episode today, we're going to get into a couple of just examples, talking about the, smart renovator versus a money pit renovator. And so in the first example, our smart renovator, he spent 12 grand on flooring, paint, and fixtures. And after that, his market value increased about 22 grand. And so that, in my opinion, I think a lot of people would agree with me as well, that is definitely a smart upgrade. Spending 12 grand to increase your value by 22 grand is a net of 10 grand. You can't really beat that by sweating and putting a little bit of work into your own home. So
Yeah, absolutely. And then you look at the other side of the spectrum, right? So you look at, obviously ZD hit on it, but the money pit, right? So, you're in a $280,000 neighborhood and you spend $80,000 on a luxury kitchen. And then you get your appraisal back and it only increases the value by about 25,000. That's really just understanding and knowing your market, knowing where you're at. Obviously, if you're in a $280,000 neighborhood, $80,000 on a kitchen is so far and away excessive. It's not even funny. So, because ultimately, when you're looking at the comps, it's just not going to make sense, for where you're at. So there's just two. I mean, obviously we could go on all day, right, with just different examples, but that's just two that kind of, you have to understand where you're at, what you're doing, and what is going to make the most sense. And not everything has to be this huge, undertaking of 20, 40, 50, $60,000 worth of repairs or upgrades or whatever the case may be in order to, increase that value on your home. You just got to look at the market and kind of see where things are at, and do the little things that obviously bring people in, create an emotion, create a good feeling when they walk into your house, and you're going to be perfectly fine.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely couldn't have said it better myself. So I think that wraps us up here with our what renovations actually increase our home value and which don't. Um, I think the final message that I have for our listeners is really to just, obviously, when you renovate, you're going to be thinking about yourself ultimately. That it's human nature. When you're fixing up the place that you're living in, you're going to be thinking about yourself. But the just as big a thought needs to be on the next buyer in mind, in my opinion, to be in kind of, juggle those two things, take what you want and also think about the next buyer and kind of put those two things together. And I think with that strategy, you're going to be able to find a middle ground on, doing renovations that you enjoy, but also seeing the benefits and reaping the benefits down the road as well when you go to sell. There you go.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. So, guys, that is going to be the conclusion of this episode, talking about what renovations are going to increase the value of your home and which are not. So, hopefully, you guys got some great takeaways from this. Hopefully, it helped kind of give you an idea, if you currently own a home, what could be done to help increase that value over time. And also, and what could to kind of maybe avoid at the same time. And then obviously, just if you don't own a home, kind of give you an idea of what to look for in a house, right? And what can be upgraded and what can be done to help, drive value, and maybe what to look out for when you're out there on the home search yourself. So, yeah, that's going to be it for today, guys. Obviously, appreciate you all tuning in. Each time we drop an episode, we are nearing, by the time this episode drops, we will be nearing about a year's worth of podcasts dropped, which is just insane to say. Obviously, or this time last year, this was just merely an idea. We had gotten the equipment and whatnot, but we really hadn't even started recording. And so it's pretty awesome to be here now a year later, and be bringing you guys content on a weekly basis. So really appreciate y'all. If you guys haven't already, obviously find us on all social medias, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. That's all I got for you guys this week, or all we have for you guys this week. So appreciate you tuning in, and we will catch up with you guys on the next episode.
Absolutely, guys. Cheers.